The film opens with a time-lapse of Hutche's mundane life cycle, during which he does an ordinary job and comes home to a strained wife. One night, Hutche has trouble sleeping, so he wakes up and checks up on his kids. He ends up coming across two rookie burglars looting his house for money. Despite having a golf club in his hand, he refuses to hit the burglars, realizing they're a couple desperate for money. Unexpectedly, Hutche's son runs down to tackle the male burglar and seeks his father's help, who instead asks his son to let the burglars go. His son gets disappointed over this, and when they have the cops over, one of the cops also makes him feel pathetic for not standing up for his family. That night, he refuses to sleep with his wife and crashes the couch, where his daughter joins him, the only one who cares for Hutche. The next day, while Hutche prepares breakfast, the son reveals he has to write an essay on an army vet and would like to interview his father to get things over with. But Hutche believes he was only an auditor, whose stories aren't worth being interviewed. His wife also jumps in and tells the kid to interview his uncle and grandfather instead, who happen to be the wife's brother and father. The wife takes the kids to her car for school without having Hutche's breakfast, so he tosses it in the garbage and goes out to see them off, where his neighbor also belittles him for not beating up the burglars. When Hutche goes to work, his brother-in-law bullies him into taking his gun for his sister and the kids' safety. His father-in-law is also there, who doesn't judge him and switches the subject towards Hutche's offer to buy the office place. Later, Hutche talks to his brother, Harry, through the radio, who also knows about the incident. That's when Hutche reveals he didn't subdue the burglars because he felt empathy for them after finding them desperate for money and carrying an empty gun. The following night, Hutche visits his father in a nursing home and has dinner with him. When he returns home, his daughter brings to his attention that her bracelet has gone missing. Assuming that the burglars must have taken it along with the money, he immediately walks away without an explanation. He stops by his father's place to collect his old FBI badge and a gun, along with some cash, and sets out on a mission to find them. Waving around his badge, he asks many tattoo parlors about a specific tattoo he's drawn on a piece of paper, which he spotted on the burglars' wrists. At the end of his search, he comes across a shady tattoo shop from where he gets the burglars' address. He infiltrates their house to get back his watch and bracelet. When they claim to not have taken any bracelet from him, he brutally hits the male. The nuisance wakes up their sick infant, seeing which Hutche feels guilty about striking needy people and runs away. He hits the walls out of pure anger, but his frustration doesn't go away. Hutche takes the bus back home, but a group of drunken men crash their car and bang on the bus door to let them in. The innocent bus driver lets them in, which Hutche finds exciting because he was waiting to let out his frustration on something like this. Now, when the drunkard men pose a threat to a young girl, Hutche politely locks the bus driver out of the bus and begins fighting the bad guys, starting off by emptying his gun and throwing a solid punch. However, his abilities and reflexes are somewhat rusty after the retirement, so he also gets badly beaten up in the fight. After a long session, he knocks out everyone. One of the men is about to choke to death, but Hutche saves him by slitting open his throat and sticking a straw in it so he can breathe through the straw instead of his injured mouth. Upon returning home by foot, he finds his wife waiting for him in worry. He shows his beaten-up self, so she tends to his wounds, midst which Hutche openly communicates with her and brings to her attention how bland their marriage has gotten, without the essence of love and intimacy. This prompts the wife to remove the pillow partition that night. Meanwhile, a Russian mobster enters his own bar with swagger and sings with the hired singer on the stage to have fun. When he meets his group, he finds out something from his men, which makes him break his glass and attack his security guard to death with it, revealing the kind of petty sociopath he is. Julian doesn't take it too well when he visits his little brother in the hospital, fighting the battle between life and death. He picks up a chair and visits his brother's sidekicks, who are also hospitalized. He throws the chair on them and consecutively beats them with it when he finds out one man out of them all in here. One of the sidekicks tells Julian to cool it, since he never liked his brother. But Julian doesn't take this too well. When he asks them about any proof of the man who beat them up, they show him Hutche's Metro card, which they picked up during the fight. On the other hand, Hutche is refreshed after the incident and communicating well with his family. His brother, Harry, calls him on the landline and scolds him for beating up the naive men for his own pleasure. Harry sheds light on whom he's messed with and forces him to visit the barber's shop, where his government handlers from old times are waiting for him. As they speak of Julian being an influential man who'd go to extreme lengths to find Hutche, Julian recruits a hacker to look into the Metro card. She finds no dirt on Hutche but traces his dad's nursing home. When pressurized by Julian, she manipulates a defense agent from the Pentagon to get Hutche's record by threatening to release his private photos to his family if he doesn't help. So the man immediately searches Hutche's name in the archival division of the Records Administration of the United States, but his access is denied. Back in the barbershop, the handler reveals that Julian is currently handed his mob's hundreds of millions of expensive paintings to look after. Meanwhile, the blackmailed guy goes through old paper files containing Hutche's identity and sends them to the hacker. The awfully disturbing images make the hacker quit her job after delivering the dirt to Julian. That night, Hutche cooks his family dinner in order to make things right with them. Unfortunately, he takes a peek through the window and finds an entire team of assassins approaching his home that are sent by Julian. In a frightening manner, Hutche herds his family to the basement. Without an explanation, he shoves them there and kisses his wife before leaving. Now, he cuts the house's power to properly welcome the assassins. He strikes them one by one and kills them. But in the end, 3 assassins tase him and load him in their car's trunk. As they're speeding away, Hutche regains his consciousness and finds himself handcuffed. He dislocates his thumb to free his hand and uses a fire extinguisher to fog up the car, which causes it to crash. 2 of the assassins die, but Hutche and the main guy turn out alive. When he asks who Hutche is, he breaks to him that he was an auditor for the CIA and all the 3-letter agencies, who would use him to clean their dirty work. Midst his introduction, the Russian dies. Hutche runs his way back home and alerts his father over the phone. At home, Hutche regrets messing up when he looks at the nearly dying assassins. He brings out his family from the locked basement and covers her daughter's eyes to prevent her from seeing dead men. He sends them away to a safe place and promises his wife he will explain everything later. Now, he takes out his secretly stashed gold bars and cash. He places the yet-alive assassins on the couch and talks about his last mission, in which he let the bad guy go. He was certain that the bad guy would relapse, so when he went to check up on him, the bad guy had quit everything to settle down with his family. Hutche grew so jealous that he quit his job and settled down with his own family. Currently, when Hutche finds the assassins long dead, he sets his house on fire to eliminate proof of their existence and steals his neighbor's car to run away. Julian's men also pay a visit to Hutche's father in his nursing home, but the old man shoots them with his shotgun. Meanwhile, Hutche throws all his gold bars in front of his in-laws and buys their work building right away. Julian sees the news about the car crash and finds out from his men about everything gone wrong. Alone in the building, Hutche creates different kinds of bombs and loads them in his stolen car's trunk before breaking into Julian's mob, where he shoots everyone who comes his way. While Julian sings in his bar and entertains guests, Hutche sets all of his money on fire and shows up to have dinner right in front of Julian performing. Julian finds this audacious of him and calls his security to point their guns at him. But Hutche pulls out a landmine, which has everyone leave the bar. Now alone, Hutche reasons with the Russian by giving him a chance to start over somewhere else. Once Hutche leaves, Julian and his mob follow him in their cars and open fire at him. They almost have him, but he flees cleverly and shows up at his brother's place, who earlier told him not to involve him. Sadly, Julian and his men show up and shoot him in the parking lot. While Hutche takes cover, his brother shoots the Russians with his snipers. Surprisingly, his old father shows up all strapped on with shotguns, who gives him cover and takes him inside the building. The family sets up all sorts of bombs and welcomes the mob. Inside, Hutche and his family bravely fight the mob and shoot all of them to death. In the end, Hutche tapes his landmine to a bulletproof glass door and puts its string inside his mouth. He runs towards Julian, who's shooting at him, and pulls the string with his mouth, which blows the landmine on Julian's face, causing him to explode and die. As the family unites after winning, the police sirens start wailing, so Hutche quickly leaves a voicemail on his wife's phone number, assuring her he's soon going to get her and the family. The film ends with a Russian and American agent interrogating Hutche, who's too busy feeding a stray cat he found in his brother's building. Both agents get a call from their higher-ups, which leaves their jaws dropped after knowing Hutche's true identity. Thank you for being a part of our video. If these tales of mystery and intrigue sent shivers down your spine, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more bone-chilling narratives. Stay tuned. And until next time, stay captivated.